Rosalie Edge may be the greatest environmentalist you've never heard of. In the early 20th century, she fought fiercely to protect raptors and old-growth forests and to establish national parks like Olympic and Kings Canyon. So why is her story seldom told? In this episode, we'll find out why. I'm Todd Christopher, and this is The Secret Lives of Parks. The Appalachian Trail runs for 230 miles through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and at the point where it crosses State Route 2018, a scenic mountain road near the rural community of Eckville, it borders on a truly remarkable place. Hawk Mountain Sanctuary was established in 1934 as the world's first refuge for birds of prey. In 2022, it was added to the National Register of Historic Places, which is administered by the National Park Service, for its significance not only to conservation but also to women's history. Hawk Mountain's founder, a New York City suffragist and activist named Rosalie Edge, left an indelible mark on 20th century conservation, including the establishment of national parks such as Olympic and Kings Canyon. Yet she remains a largely unknown figure among parkgoers today. Wanting to learn more about this extraordinary woman and her vision, I traveled to Hawk Mountain on a bright October morning to speak with Sanctuary President Sean Grace. We meet at the rustic amphitheater where staff educators are about to lead a program for a group of birders, including the chance to see some rehabilitating raptors up close.
I'll just say hi. Hi, folks. My name's Sean Grace. I'm the president here at Hawk Mountain for almost 8 years. It'll be 8 years in January. And I just want to thank you for coming out today. I'm a real big believer in education. I think all conservation is education. And I really think Hawk Mountain does an outstanding job. I think you're going to have a great program here. If you guys go on a hike, you're going to get an opportunity to meet trainees from different parts of the world that'll be up at South Lookout and North Lookout. And so I just want to welcome you and enjoy your program today, okay?
Good deal. All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Hawk Mountain Sanctuary.
Grace and I walk and talk as we make our way toward the lookout trails, and his pride in the sanctuary is evident. So, too, is the open spirit and welcoming nature of this place.
And right now, here we are. We're walking on our ADA trail. We just came from our amphitheater. And as far as I know, we're the only organization that has a mountaintop ADA accessible trail. And this leads out to our South Lookout. So folks that come here, regardless of ability, can get out to our South Lookout. And right now we're walking past our native plant garden. Hawk Mountain was well ahead of the curve on that and established that many years ago.
It's a short, easy walk on the accessible trail to the South Lookout. Reaching Hawk Mountain's primary lookout, the North Lookout, requires a 1-mile hike on a sometimes rocky trail, but almost anyone can take in the sweeping vista that Grace and I now enjoy. Rounded mountain ridges showing just a hint of fall color on either side of a valley that stretches to the visible horizon. It's a magnificent view of the topography that defines this place.
Yeah, I would say in the environmental education world, people talk about sense of place. Here at Hawk Mountain, I would talk about power of place. And here we are located on the Kittatinny Ridge. The Kittatinny Ridge spans 185 miles across Pennsylvania, and it connects with the Appalachian Corridor, which goes from Maine to Georgia. And it's because of this mountainous ridge, when winds come out, especially out of the north and the west, and they hit the ridge, they create a wave of air or a wave of energy. And so raptors historically have utilized that as a way to migrate, say 200 to 300 miles per night by riding those wind currents. It's a very effective way for raptors to migrate long distances. They're not using powered flight, they're just using that. It's almost like surfing. So think of raptors as surfers.
That's a great analogy. So they're sensitive to these prevailing winds and these air currents, and it is the easiest way for them to get where they need to go.
Yeah, I would say there's two primary ways they utilize it. So they'll use the ridge line and the winds that come off of it and ride that wave of energy. And the other thing is when we're out, you go out in the morning, it's blue sky day, and then by afternoon you get clouds. And that's because the sun's heating up the ground. Thermal pockets of air are warming. And as they rise, they cool off like 4.5 degrees for every 1,000 feet they go up, and then they start to create clouds. Warmer air holds more moisture as they cool, they condense, creates clouds. But under those clouds, there are thermals, and raptors know how to find thermals. They spiral up, and as they get to the top of the thermal where the energy stops, they stream out of it. And if you're a raptor counter, it's a great place to count the numbers of raptors that are coming out of those pockets of raptors that are migrating.
Today, having great numbers of migrating hawks, eagles, and falcons pass by a place like Hawk Mountain every fall is useful to science. But unfortunately, nearly a century ago, that concentration of birds of prey made them easy targets. At the time, raptors were seen as a threat to farm animals like chickens and as competition for game species like rabbits and pheasants. And as the scarcity brought on by the Great Depression deepened, so too did those feelings of animosity. Shooters would gather on autumn mornings at what is now Hawk Mountain, and where visitors today raise binoculars and field glasses, they would raise shotguns.
You know, people, they would come here to the ridge lines, and hunters would shoot raptors. Again, they were concerned that they were competing with them for game animals, and so they would shoot the raptors, and I'm talking sometimes hundreds of raptors per day.
The carnage was captured in stark black and white photographs by a young ornithologist named Richard Poe, who would go on to found the Nature Conservancy decades later. Those photographs, which showed hundreds of dead raptors lined up on the forest floor by the hunters who had killed them, made their way to Rosalie Edge, a New York City suffragist and activist with a deeply held passion for conservation.
She had a reputation for, when it came on behalf of conservation, she wasn't going to take any prisoners. She knew what she wanted to accomplish. She was very driven, very singularly minded. And you need that kind of a personality, I think, sometimes to be able to get things done.
And Rosalie Edge got things done. She was so appalled by the wanton destruction of the raptors at Hawk Mountain that she quickly arranged to buy 1,400 acres of the mountain property in 1934, establishing Hawk Mountain Sanctuary, now 2,600 acres, as the world's first refuge for birds of prey, just like that. She hired a young, newly married naturalist named Maurice Brune, who came to the sanctuary with his wife, Irma Brune, and served as Hawk Mountain's first curator. Brune turned aside hunters even as he painstakingly documented the fall migration, establishing the detailed raptor counts that continue to this day, when sanctuary staff take to the lookouts and tally migrating birds from August 15th to December 15th each year. That historical data is critical. Hawk Mountain's records, after just a couple of decades, demonstrated a dramatic decline in the numbers of immature bald eagles passing through each year, data that later would figure in Rachel Carson's watershed book, Silent Spring. Carson, who visited Hawk Mountain while working on the book, linked the proliferation of the pesticide DDT with the development of fragile eggshells in raptor species and the corresponding decline in their populations that followed. Bald eagles and peregrine falcons, both considered conservation success stories now, became endangered as a result. It's just one example of how far-reaching the ripples of what Rosalie Edge started here really are. And then, just as I'm lost in thought, a close flyover excites the handful of visitors sharing the lookout with us.
Whoa, very close.
Yeah, right overhead, yeah. That's all right, huh? Yeah.
I guess it's worth pointing out. I mean, much of the bird watching is taking place through the binocular lenses, but you do get these very close flyovers like that.
Yes. Oh, these guys are coming right into land here in front of us. They're two black vultures. He's just right out in front of us. Yeah, you know, if you're going to come, I would recommend bringing a pair of binoculars, but you can oftentimes see migration happening, especially on days where there's northwest winds. That really tends to drive large streams of raptors past our northern lookout. And we're at our south lookout right now, and Aniket is here, and he's a trainee from India, and he's doing interpretation and helping with the count here today, but our official count happens at north. And so there'll be another trainee up there and 1 or 2 official counters up there. Oftentimes school groups hike there, oftentimes led by our educators, so.
It's incredible to hear the sweep of everything that is happening in terms of research and training, that this all was one person's idea.
Yeah, but again, it's the power of place. And what this area, to me, in some ways represents, it is an area where like-minded people come and share those thoughts and those ideas, just like you coming today and wanting to know about it. And we're up at North Lookout, they talk about being up on the rocks, because literally you are up on the rocks. But in those rocks, down in the cracks, there's a lot of good energy that's seeped down in there over the years. And it's just people that are really passionate about conservation. And so for me, it's a place of power, and where those ideas are shared and also dispersed. And the raptors fly over along the way, and they're carrying those messages on the wind along with them. I like to think of it sometimes in those terms as well, because we are all connected. We're all sharing the same planet.
To look out from a vantage point like this, it's easy to remember that.
Yeah.
Not a bad day at the office, is it?
Not a bad day at the office.
If you're intrigued about Rosalie Edge, there's really only one person to talk to.
My name is Dyana Furmansky, and I am the biographer of Rosalie Edge, a long forgotten but very important part of the conservation history of the 20th century.
Furmansky is the author of Rosalie Edge, Hawk of Mercy, and was kind enough to answer my questions about this fascinating figure, the first of which was this. For all of her accomplishments in conservation, why is she not more widely known?
Well, I think it's the way history has been. She was a woman at a time that was dominated by men. She was not a scientist like Rachel Carson, who came afterwards. And she was very, very pushy, which was a bad combination for a woman at her time.
Edge, by all accounts, was not one to back down from a confrontation, and her uncompromising nature earned her a colorful nickname.
The Hellcat. She was called the most unselfish, indomitable Hellcat in the history of conservation. And that was a description of her published in the New Yorker, a profile of her in 1947. So she was prickly, she was direct, she acted as if she had nothing to lose, and she would explain that because she was not employed by any of the bureaucracies and conservation organizations, she could say anything she wanted. She could offend equally, whether it was Audubon Society, National Park Service, National Park Association. She didn't care. And that was the sense that she had nothing to lose, which I think makes her most interesting and powerful.
When we encounter people with great drive and a great sense of purpose, it's only natural to wonder where that comes from. What is it about them, about their lives and experiences, that propels them? Rosalie Edge had a fire inside her, for sure. But what lit that fire?
Well, this is the part where I get to play as her biographer, of course, based on what I have read in her personal papers and interviewing many, many family members. She was the daughter of great privilege of the Gilded Age in New York. Her father was first cousin to Charles Dickens. Her family were friends with people named Vanderbilt and Carnegie. So she saw herself as belonging to an exclusive society, which did not make her tolerant. She was used to being taken care of. She was the perfectly spoiled child, the noble girl, her father called her. So from an early age, she was quite taught to expect that she was entitled to a lot. So that was part of her persona. But I give her a large personal life because of the letters and the history that I was able to find. To people at her time, she burst on the scene from nowhere. Yes, she had been a suffragist, a very prominent suffragist in the New York Party, but she came out of nowhere, I would say, like a bat out of hell. And that's my research shows that that was because of what had been done to her personally. She was betrayed by her husband. There's evidence that he probably was a little rough with her, that he may have broken her arm. He was having an affair that she discovered. And as a result, she felt totally betrayed. And the only thing that could give her comfort were her walks in Central Park and listening to birds. And she does describe that. She does talk about how they were her solace for her soul. She's very careful about not revealing what happened to her, but I was fortunate to have it confirmed in letters that I was given by family members and by personal recollections of people who were nearby at the time. So birds were her comfort.
Hearing that, the speed and decisiveness with which Rosalie Edge founded Hawk Mountain, raptorial traits in and of themselves, seem almost inevitable. How horrified she must have been to see those photos of the slaughter of the very creatures that gave her a sense of peace. But she didn't rest there. Just as the sense of justice that fueled her as a suffragist led her to protection of birds, she broadened her view of conservation to encompass entire ecosystems. And that's where her legend as a national park activist was born, as she led the campaigns that called for the creation of both Olympic and Kings Canyon national parks.
And moving ahead in her story, while she is defending Hawk Mountain Sanctuary in the 1930s on a shoestring and campaigning and writing pamphlets and educating the public, and at some point more than 1 million people had access to her pamphlets, according to her son, Peter Edge, who has since died. But trees needed protection. And the main place that had been protected was Sequoia National Park in the late 19th century, I think 1890. Huge trees. They had no economic value because they took so much energy to cut down. They were fun to cut down. They were challenging, but no, you're not going to be able to destroy the sequoia forest. A little south in the Sierras, they also had redwoods, which had more value and could be cut down and were very, very close to being destroyed. And when she learned that, this lady from New York City, this socialite from New York City, takes it upon herself to save old growth trees, not only in Northern California, but in the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State, where old growth trees were seen, even by the conservationists of the day, as decadent, worthless, cut them down to have them be valuable. So she had this encompassing vision of old growth timber in Northern California and in the Olympic Peninsula that without her efforts would definitely have been clear cut. And what was unusual about that is that she'd never set foot in Washington State or Northern California where these trees were. She was doing this because the scientists that she listened to said, you know what, you got to save trees. Trees are really where it's at. And if you want to save birds, you've got to save trees. So she became as dedicated to saving old growth timber as she had been to saving raptors. Things that others felt were useless and had no economic value were her bread and butter.
And perhaps that best characterizes Rosalie Edge's unique brand of activism. If she felt a cause was just, she would join the fight, wherever it was. There was no here or there for her, just a firm belief that everything was connected.
So she made it a national movement, which was unusual. At that time, there were few national groundswells of protection, but it really was a new part of the playbook. You tended to defend what you knew in your area, in your region, And here she's coming from New York City, never having set foot in the Olympic National Forest or in what became Kings Canyon National Park. And she's in control.
Rosalie Edge passed in 1962, just a couple of months after Silent Spring was published, and Dyana Furmansky notes how her life was bookended by John Muir and Rachel Carson, that she picked up what Muir started and started what Carson finished. It's no overstatement to say that Rosalie Edge, through what she created, what she fought for, and how she fought for it, in many ways shaped modern conservation.
I am so happy that I came to know her this well by writing about her life. I can't say that she was a person I might have personally liked. I don't think she would have liked me. But her contributions are so enormous, and they do span the country. And I am very, very pleased that many organizations, from Olympic National Park to the National Audubon Society, are recognizing her contributions. There's no doubt about them. She was a model for the eruption, the explosion in environmentalism, even though she didn't live to see it. And I'm so glad when I get a lot of calls about her, and I'm happy to do programs like this, because I do believe that she went too long without proper attention.
Back at Hawk Mountain, I make my way along the trail to the massive rocky outcropping that is the North Lookout. Dozens of visitors are gathered on the boulders, while a sanctuary staffer and trainee maintain the official count, calling and pointing out raptors as they make their way over the ridgeline and past the lookout.
There's a red-shouldered hawk.
Though the conditions are favorable for a strong flight, the raptors are few and far between, save for a few turkey vultures who pass by close enough to give us all a terrific view of their 6-foot wingspan and the naked red heads that inspired their name. I linger here for a half hour or more, basking in the warm sun under the cerulean skies of a perfect early October day. It's really hard to leave. Partly because it truly is a beautiful place with commanding views of the surrounding mountains and the valleys below, and partly because there's a palpable sense that the serenity here could be broken at any moment by something spectacular. And just as I make peace with the fact that I really should be going, it happens.
Red-tailed hawk and a young eagle.
Low and directly overhead, an immature bald eagle and a red-tailed hawk pass at the same time, close to each other. In fact, too close. They suddenly flash and dart at each other in mid-flight, delighting the onlookers. The tussle is brief but dramatic. The daily count would later show just one bald eagle for the day. I was lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time. On my walk back down the ridge, I stop again at the South Lookout, where Aniket, the trainee from India, is posted.
Are you seeing much here today?
Not as much I would like to see.
The winds aren't favorable for this side, or?
I don't know, it's north winds, it's cold front, everything on paper seems right. But nature is like, you can't predict me.
Just then, a couple of hikers approached the lookout. They had the same thought as Aniket.
Hello.
Hi. That's what I saw. The wind looked good, you know.
Yeah, everything looked amazing, and I was so stoked to come here in the morning. I was like, I'm gonna see maybe hundreds of birds, and so far not so many birds.
That's all right. You see a lot of beautiful, beautiful scenery.
Yeah, the view is amazing. The weather is amazing.
Yeah.
Everything else is just phenomenal.
Yes. And it's a good day for a walk.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go.
It is a good day for a walk, and as I make my way to the trailhead and the packed lunch waiting for me in my car, I have plenty of food for thought to hold me over. Echoing in my ears are Sean Grace's words that remind me why advocates like Rosalie Edge raised their voices to speak up for the wild things and the wild places that need to be protected. Places that still, no matter how it may sometimes feel, have the power to teach us, to inspire us, and to bring us together.
It's a special place, yeah, and it's sort of I'd like to say, I think it's kind of a sacred place. That's certainly how the folks that work here, and I think a lot of the folks that visit here look at, it's, and everybody should have a special place. Hawk Mountain's a great place, but I would encourage you to get connected with your special place. What's in your backyard? And learn those places and go visit them. And spend some time outside and get connected.
The Secret Lives of Parks is a production of the National Parks Conservation Association. Episode 48 of Hawks and Hellcats was produced by Todd Christopher. Listen to all of our stories at thesecretlivesofparks.org. Original theme music by Chad Fisher. To learn more about Hawk Mountain Sanctuary and the annual migration of raptors, visit hawkmountain.org. To learn more about the life of Rosalie Edge, check out Dyana Furmansky's book, Rosalie Edge, Hawk of Mercy. Your support helps to make this podcast possible. If you're enjoying The Secret Lives of Parks, please consider liking, sharing, or leaving a review. Thank you. For more than a century, the National Parks Conservation Association has been protecting and enhancing America's national parks for present and future generations. With more than 1.9 million members and supporters, NPCA is the nation's only independent, nonpartisan advocacy organization dedicated to protecting national parks. Learn more and join us at npca.org.